At the age of 8, Sam von Einem found himself living in Abu Dhabi. While he didn't know it at the time, the extreme heat that all but trapped him indoors would become a blessing in disguise, as it led him to pursue a sport that would go on to change his life forever.
My journey started in Abu Dhabi, where I was living when I was younger. So we were there for Dad's work, and because it's very hot consistently, so playing tennis and soccer wasn't really the go. So we had a table tennis at home, so we played a lot of table tennis. I came back here to this club and I went out to a junior night, and the coach said I had potential. So that's where it all started. I played competitively for the first time in 2007, and I sort of just builded from there. And then once I finished school, that's when I got into para sport, and I hope to. Since I got the silver medal in Rio Paralympic Games, I want to try and go one better in Tokyo. Yeah, that's the dream.
While Sam's rise to the top has been remarkably swift, it did come off the back of a rather unexpected discovery. At the age of 15, the promising athlete who'd often struggled at school found out he had autism, as well as a classifiable intellectual disability, or ID.
So I found out I was disabled, autistic, when I was 15 years old at school. So I didn't really do anything about it straight after that. But when I was 18 years old, we found that I could get into the Paralympic Games through the ID classes, and table tennis had an ID class that competed in the Paralympics, which was quite fortunate. Yeah, so that's how we got into it.
Sam's ability to see his diagnosis as an opportunity to be more and do more isn't just a testament to his character, but it's an example of the sort of resilience and tenacity that seems to define almost all great athletes.
When I found out that I had a disability, I didn't really change. It didn't really change it because it didn't change who I was. It didn't change what I was like. It just gave me a reason to why I was a bit slower than all the other kids to learn, why I didn't understand things as quickly. Yeah, so it didn't change who I was, and it didn't really affect me too much. And it gave me openings in other places, like to be able to go to the Paralympic Games. There was a lot of positive that came out of it. I don't try and be too negative about being disabled, because it really just doesn't matter. It doesn't change who I was.
Who he was, even before his diagnosis, was an aspiring table tennis player. The only thing his newfound condition did, says Australia's Paralympic table tennis coach Alois, was give him an additional part to getting where he wanted to go.
Sam came into the program a few years ago, and he was almost a ready-made player because he was part of our national able-bodied junior program. So from that, though, we first met at a state camp in Adelaide, in Woodville. It was interesting first up. Sam's an interesting character to start off with. It's always hard to exactly read him, and just because he presents so well, it's also difficult initially just to gauge exactly where he's at.
While the invisible nature of Sam's condition means he can easily avoid judgment, the silver medalist is adamant that the public's perception when it comes to athletes with more visible disabilities needs to change.
With the community, well, with me, they don't know, so I can go through things and they won't even know that I have a disability. I think when they see someone else that's got an obvious disability, they probably just think about their limitations, what they can't do and what they need help with, but there's actually a lot of things they can do, and you'd be surprised at what they can actually, what they actually can do in it, even when they are wheelchair bound.
Those with more obvious disabilities may suffer at the hands of a misinformed public, but it's those like Sam who don't look as they belong at a Paralympic event who are often ignored by the media because, put simply, their condition isn't as visually interesting or as easily understood.
People with obvious disabilities get filmed because it's obvious to the public that they are disabled, and they can see what they actually can do even well while they're in a wheelchair, with the incredible things they can still do. Because it's easier for the public to see that rather than see an ID that they can't see their disability, so it'll be harder harder for them to relate to it.
Asking Eloise about the ins and outs of Sam's condition and how it affected him as an athlete, he was quick to point out there were both pros and cons, including an incredible ability to focus and train methodically. But when it came to altering or modifying specific elements of his game, that was another story.
So when you see an athlete with an intellectual disability, I suppose the first thing is that you really don't see anything. You're looking at this athlete and thinking, wow, what an athlete, like have a look at that player. And especially if you're coming into a stadium, if you haven't seen much table tennis before, you're sitting in the crowd and you think, hang on, what's going on there? Like, what's this guy doing at the Paralympics? But it's really interesting to then be able to coach athletes like that and just see what is going on. So it's more around how well they can process information, how well they can adapt in situations to a game plan or to some strategies, and that's the biggest thing that you see. But everyone has their own challenges in their own particular way, and it's from a coaching point of view, there's not a whole lot of difference between working with Paralympians and Olympians.
Having coached both the men's Olympic table tennis team and the Paralympics team, Aloy's insight led me to wonder, if athletes train and prepare and have the same goals to be their best and to overcome their mental and physical limits, then why do we separate them when it comes to the biggest stage of all?
If they were to combine the Olympics and Paralympics having it in the same space would be really cool. It'd be great, yeah.
It'd be great one day to just be able to see sport as sport, not sport for the able-bodied and sport for people with disability. Because sport is just about trying to do your best, trying to improve, trying to reach your goals, win the medals if that's what it is. And that looks exactly the same in a Paralympic space as it does in an Olympic space, as it does in a lot of other high performance spaces. So for me, it'd be just fantastic to one day just have all of that in the same room, all of that at the same event. One Olympic Games that involves players of all abilities.
While it might sound a lofty goal, so did hosting the very first Paralympic Games in 1960, or paying athletes with a disability to pursue their dreams full time. Just as Sam is the beneficiary of a lot of blood, sweat and tears from those before him, he too is now paving the way. In Rio, he became the first Australian to medal in table tennis at the Paralympics in 32 years, and no Australian has ever medalled at an Olympic Games in the sport. Still, despite doing it more than a few times, he says there's nothing like the rush of representing your country.
Walking out on court, onto the table tennis court, representing Australia, especially when you're on the biggest stage, it's just such a special feeling. Because who you're representing the people of Australia. So it's a special feeling, and it's just a privilege. How do you be a good table tennis player? It's a very easy game to play, but incredibly hard to master. So you really just got to practice. Who's Sam Bonino? I'm just a guy that loves playing sport and likes the occasional Coke. That would be me.
Full Coke or Coke Zero?
Full Coke.
Favourite colour?
Blue. Blue. Yeah. A lot of blue.
Favourite food?
Probably pasta. Sport's about participation, it's about enjoying it. It's not about being the best as necessary, it's just about enjoying it. So getting more people with IDs or physical disabilities is getting out there and participating. That's what you want, just enjoying the sport, whatever that sport may be.